Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks so much for joining us.
Now with summer over, we are here in the fall.
Yes, fall is finally here. The temperatures are starting to dip a little bit, so it's definitely here. But you know, that means Halloween season is coming, which is always fun. And the fall colors up in Duluth where we live are very, very pretty. So that's always kind of fun too, to go out in nature and hike and stuff. So
And
yeah.
the unfortunate part is that it's starting to get a little darker slowly but surely outside. But hopefully our podcast here can brighten the day a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
All right, that's the cheesy plug there.
Well, today's episode is going to be a really wholesome one. Today's is about responding to kindness and about how we can, in a positive way, both respond to it and accept nice deeds that are done to us or for us. Sometimes it's hard to accept generosity. Sometimes we don't feel like we deserve it, or sometimes we can not know how to respond when you have generosity that's maybe not quite what you were expecting. Sometimes there's things like that. So we have a lot of stories across the entire spectrum of receiving generosity in different forms and how to respond to them. And we're just going to have some good discussions today.
Yeah, I feel like gratitude's something that most of us struggle with. And I think especially as Minnesotans, I feel like we extra struggle sometimes. Like to me, at least I feel like I've been fought on this a little bit, but I feel like one of the biggest identifiers that I have of, oh, you're Minnesotan or Midwesterner is when you say thank you to somebody for doing something, your response back is thank you or no thank you. Like we can't say you're welcome back. And I'm a victim of it as well. Like I don't know why we do that. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's always kind of an interesting thing trying to respond to nice acts and stuff, and knowing the right way to respond, making sure you seem appreciative enough and like showing that gratitude that you feel, because sometimes it is really hard to express how much something means to you. Kind of all about expressing gratitude and responding to those nice things. And so with that, we're going to start today with our first Reddit story that comes from the thread, "What's the most wholesome experience you've had?" And it says, "I was sitting in my car with my dog, waiting for my wife and kids who were in the store. An elderly lady leaving the store tripped and fell. Bags fell everywhere. I exited my vehicle to help her, picked her up, assembled her bags, and got her and her stuff into her car. She was grateful, said goodbye, and left. Fast forward 6 months. I had shaved my beard and my head as it was getting warm, and I was sitting outside a place of establishment having a meal with my wife, kids, and my dog. The same lady exited the place and saw my dog. She came over and recounted how she had seen a dog just like mine, who was owned by the nicest man who had helped her when she fell. She went on to talk about how that man was a true gentleman who gave her faith in humanity. She heaped praises on this man and was getting misty-eyed during her recollection. We all agreed that there was, in fact, still some good people out there, and she left without having recognized me at all. My wife and kids started talking about the virtues of being kind, and then I told them that it was in fact me that she was talking about. My kids asked why I didn't tell her, and I told them that doing the right thing shouldn't be done for recognition or praise, but because it's simply the right thing to do. A wholesome experience and a teaching moment all at the same time. Good things."
You don't think there's any chance she knew?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I wonder if that was like her coy way of saying thank you without making it like a huge thing. I don't know. Maybe she was kind of trying to slyly be like, yeah, he's a really great guy, without, directly saying like, I know it's you. Who knows?
But also when you have a group of that size, you would think one person would start to sniff the lie.
Right,
or the
exactly.
act, as it were. So let's just assume that it was genuine. She had no idea because he did change.
Because sometimes facial hair can change your face.
It does a lot.
So it's very, very, very possible she didn't recognize him at all.
Depending on the thickness of the beard. If you're doing beard and hair,
right, you can look completely different.
And they've only had like one interaction together, so it's not like.
And I'm sure she was flustered in the moment when that happened too, because when you're dropping stuff and someone's trying to help you, you're kind of flustered and embarrassed. So you're not usually, recollecting things as clearly. So
Not surprising that the dog is visually remembered though, because it's a
yeah,
dog.
exactly.
But assuming that that's like genuine, that she really didn't recognize him, that's got to be the best form of flattery. It's still nice even if she did recognize him. Now it's like part of the conversation, oh yeah, thank you, and she's taking him specifically. That's still a very kind thing, but when it's seemingly they don't recognize you and they're talking to a stranger sharing this story that otherwise wouldn't know you, you feel like it's more genuine or it hits home a little bit more. It's kind of like you're saying nice things about somebody, but like you're completely unaware that they're around to hear you say the nice things.
Yeah, it means even more. 100%. I loved the fact that OP didn't out the fact that it was them that had done it, and that they just kind of kept it anonymous and remained kind of humble in the situation. And I think that was a kind of a good example of just remaining humble when you hear nice things said about yourself, and not like doing it for the show or doing it to be like, yeah, see, I did do a good thing. It just kind of taking in the gratitude and not making it about you kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And also that could, like, I don't know, kind of rebound it back in a not so positive way where maybe she feels flustered or embarrassed that she didn't recognize you,
and like, oh my gosh, I just said that this person did such a good thing and I didn't recognize them kind of thing. Yeah, I could have been a little more embarrassing there too. So all around though, what a wholesome story and super sweet. So, and it just also another example of expressing gratitude doesn't always have to be to the person, as you were kind of saying. Sometimes just like talking about nice things that someone did for you outwardly to other people or on social media or wherever, sometimes it can get to that person in some way, and they'll find out later on like, oh yeah, so-and-so, that meant a lot to them. Like there was a story, I think it was either last week or the week before in our episode about someone had taken a stranger to a movie with them and later found out from that person's neighbor that they had talked about it for weeks and were like, that was so much fun going to that movie with that stranger. So sometimes that gratitude can kind of come back to that person in weird ways, and like you said, sometimes it can mean even more when it comes from that kind of roundabout way rather than directly to you too. So yeah. So our next story is kind of a funny one. It starts off kind of awkward.
I mean, I feel like, again, that's a lot of these stories sometimes start from maybe a negative or weird place, but then they
end positive. So
find the positive in the bad, or the awkward or the weird sometimes.
Exactly. This next story comes from Best of Positive Updates, and it is titled, Me, 40 male, with my wife, 40 female of 10 years, disappointing anniversary gift.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So here we go.
We've been there. Just kidding.
What?
I don't think we have.
I don't think so.
Unless I'm thinking more so if I had given you a disappointing anniversary gift.
No, you're pretty good at that. The story says, my wife and I have been married for 10 years, and we celebrated our anniversary 2 weeks ago. For those that don't know, the 10th is considered the diamond anniversary, and I knew that this anniversary was really important to my wife. Don't get me wrong, it was important to me as well. We've been a good team for 10 years. But it was a really big deal for her, and I wanted to spoil her. So I had picked up some extra work over the last 6 months to make sure that I had the money to buy her some nice gifts and to take her out for a nice night. My wife had been asking me about what I would like, and I pointed out that I could do with a new desk. We had spoke about it since she wasn't happy buying me furniture for our anniversary, but I explained that I spend a lot of time sitting there and could really do with a new one. I pointed out a couple of options that I liked, all affordable and solid. On the day, I got a flat-packed POS from a well-known furniture company. Compared to my current desk, it is small, flimsy, and doesn't have anywhere to store my stuff, so I haven't used it. I ain't mad, just disappointed. Problem is that my wife keeps asking me why I won't change over to the new desk. I have no idea how to tell her, and I don't want it to turn into a fight. How do I say, darling, you bought me a crap for a gift, without saying that? TLDR, wife ignored my suggestions, bought me a cheap desk, trying to figure out how to explain this.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Because I could totally see, like, yeah, I'm just going to suck it up and take it, but also you kind of use that on a regular basis, and like it would suck for her to, like, if you held on to that lie, for it's going to come out eventually that it's especially if you're using it regularly, you're going to slip up that it sucks.
Right. And the hard part here too is that OP had given suggestions of ones that would fit what they were looking for, and then didn't fit those boxes. So if he probably feels like he was kind of ignored, which is not a great feeling. And so, but at the same time, it is hard when navigating gifts because it's a gift, there's not supposed to be like an expectation when it comes to a gift. So it's always kind of tricky territory. I feel like especially being when you've been married for 10 years, I feel like in most cases, you usually feel comfortable enough with the person that you probably could say something and be like, hey, I really, really appreciate that you got me a desk. I know I've been asking for one. I'm really sorry, but there's just some things about it that like are just not quite what I need. Is it possible that we could go to the store and you could help me with picking out a different one and like of the same kind of price, and we could just find one that fits that a little bit closer to what I was looking for? I really do appreciate the thought.
Well,
though.
if you said it was cheap, is there like a price difference then between?
I don't know.
I'd imagine so if it's cheap.
Yeah, well, the materials, yeah, it's very, very possible. So I'm not entirely sure. I do feel like what you were saying, I think that it's going to probably come out eventually that it wasn't quite what he was looking for. So I think to do it now would be better than to wait.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, and you don't have to be like, it was disappointing and I'm upset. Like, you don't necessarily have to say it that way. You can say it in a nice way. And that on the flip side too, if you give a gift to somebody, I think it's important that we're receptive to the fact that sometimes we miss the mark, or sometimes we misunderstand something that the person was saying that they wanted, and we might, like I said, just miss the mark. So I think it's important to be receptive of that and not take offense, which is really hard because, we give a gift, usually it's coming from a really good place and an excited place, like, oh, I think they're going to love this. And if they don't, it's always a little disappointing. Mm-hmm. But I know for me, I would prefer that somebody were honest than just like, oh, thanks, I'm going to return that later. You know what I mean? Like if there was a way that I could make it better for them, mm-hmm. I know I would probably prefer that, but it is hard. So it's kind of tricky territory.
Hopefully she's got a gift receipt.
Yeah, right? Okay, so update. The update says, they played me like a darn fiddle. Oh. I took some of the good advice here and I sat down with my wife when she came home. I told her the desk was too small for me and asked if it would be okay if we took it back and got something bigger. Whole time, she sat there with a poker face, finally calls our daughter and says, it only took him 15 days. Turns out that my wife thinks she's a comedian, and so does my daughter. There is some sort of crazy oak desk being shipped to us. When my wife ordered it, they told her it would take about 3 weeks to get to us. So my darling daughter convinced my wife that they should pass off her new desk as my gift. Thanks to everyone that offered advice. So it was a joke. It was a prank.
/ a test to see how long it would take for him to say something.
Yeah, it took him 15 days.
Oh my.
So it was funny because some of the comments were kind of talking about how if you had said it sooner, you probably would have been more excited sooner about your new desk, and you wouldn't have had to sit there for 2 weeks like feeling like, oh, my wife doesn't actually care about me, and like, oh, she didn't listen to what I wanted for my anniversary. So
I will say it's one of those things though where the joke becomes funnier the longer that you're holding on to it.
Yeah, right.
But you didn't know that it was a joke, so you just still communicate.
Exactly. So it all turns out positive in the end, but I thought it was still kind of a good thing to talk about because like OP really didn't know how to respond in that situation. OP was very lost. Like, what do I do here? Enough to post it on Reddit and solicit advice from strangers about what to say to his wife. So it's such an awkward thing, and so just kind of I think it's an important thing to think about and prepare for, just in case A, you're the gift giver and someone responds in that way, or if you receive a gift and you don't know how to respond because it's not quite what you were looking for. So yeah, I think it's an important thing. A comment that really stood out to me on this story that I thought was fun is it says, this story reminds me of that scene in Modern Family where Phil thinks that Claire forgot Valentine's Day and he's super disappointed, but she was actually secretly planning the best date ever and learning magic for him. And if anybody has seen Modern Family, that's a super fun episode because he goes the entire day being like, oh my gosh, she doesn't care about me at all, and like our anniversary's over, like just super upset. And then at the end, it turns out that she's been holding on to this big, huge, elaborate gift she's been planning for a while for him, and like it's a huge thing, and it's a super, super cute ending. So. I mean,
I would say that kind of thing happens a few times in Modern Family.
Yes.
Of defied expectations and holding back surprises, and yeah, sometimes to unintended consequences and effects. It's a fun show.
If anybody's looking for a really wholesome show, Modern Family is the way to go. It is such a good show. I love that show. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. Quick trigger warning for this next story. It describes a car accident with some life-threatening injuries, and it does go into a little bit of detail. So if you would like to skip, we will put a time code in the description below this episode, and you can skip ahead. All right, on to our next story. So this one takes more of a serious turn. This one comes from the Reddit thread, "What's the most wholesome experience you've had?" And it says, "When I was 16, I was in a serious car accident while driving a friend home from school. A homeless man named Jacob was at the corner where I blew the stop sign and was the only one who saw the accident other than the other driver and my buddy. Jacob apparently raced to the car, realizing the other driver and my buddy were conscious and getting out of the cars but pretty beaten up. I was knocked out and bleeding from the head, face, and stomach. Jacob pried the door open and used his own shirt to hold pressure to the bleeding until the ambulance arrived.
That's scary.
Yeah, right? He didn't leave me for the next 12 hours. The cops/hospital had a lot of trouble getting a hold of my parents. This was 2003. As my friend didn't know anything about my home life, we were just friendly in class, and my parents were on a trip about a 6-hour drive away. Jacob refused to leave the hospital waiting room, asking for updates until my parents got there, while I was having a piece of the dashboard removed from my abdomen and my face put back together."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. According to the hospital staff and my buddy in the car, he refused to give any information other than his first name. When my parents got there in the early morning, apparently he got up and walked out of the hospital. Once I was safe and recovering, my parents searched for Jacob through every resource they could to find him and thank him. A bunch of good leads turned up, but we never heard from him again. Jacob, if you're on here, I hope you're well, and you need to know that I still have your shirt. I was bleeding out until you took it off your back and held it on my stomach. It kept me alive until surgery. Please hit me up. I owe you a new shirt, a hug, and a beer, and my life.
Dang, that's a scary situation. He's got good under pressure instincts.
Yeah,
know?
right?
Like when it came fight or flight, he went for it.
Jacob, yeah.
He sprung into action.
Right? And he just left. And so that no one got to actually properly thank him for what happened and stuff. So obviously he wasn't doing it to be like a hero to get the clout and stuff. But I think it's another example here of sometimes just putting out your gratitude to the world. That person might see it, because who knows? Jacob could be a Redditor. This post probably might go viral. He might eventually see it.
There's no update on there?
There's not, unfortunately. But
Jacob,
if you're out there, you're a hero. When something of that caliber happens to you, wanting to express that gratitude to somebody and like actually be able to say how much something really truly meant to you. And sometimes doing it for ourselves in a way is kind of helpful too, not just to like tell the other person, but to get it off your chest of how thankful you are that this person did this for you. Even if it's not to the person, I think it can be good for the soul. It's almost like a time to reflect on something really impactful that happened to you and say to the world, like, there is good out there. This happened to me and this person did this nice thing. And I think that if we do that more often, we start remembering all those things in our lives that were impactful and that we're grateful for, even if it's not to the person. And it can be really, it can make us just a lot happier with life, I feel like.
Now imagine they find Jacob, say thank you to Jacob, and then Jacob just says, no thank you, back. Solidify that this happened in the Midwest or something. Like, why? Why, Jacob? Why should you be thanking me in this situation?
Oh my God.
It sounds weird, but I swear we do it to everything.
It's true. It's true. We do. All right, on to our next story. This story is from that same thread, and it says, I don't know if this counts, but I'm a nurse, and I care for a lot of elderly people. I was 3 days away from my due date with my second child. I went to Walmart with my then 3-year-old daughter and my husband. We were doing a big stock up on groceries since we were about to have a baby. We literally had 2 carts full of groceries / toiletries / last minute baby items. We were at the checkout and the cashier was scanning our stuff. Our total was close to $600. An elderly woman came up and practically pushed my husband out of the way and insisted on paying for our groceries. She said I took care of her after her hip replacement and was so kind, and she was so thankful. I tried to refuse. I really wasn't in need and I really love my job. I also felt terrible because I didn't really remember her, but she remembered my name and everything. She swiped her card and paid the entire bill. It literally brought my husband, me, and the cashier to tears. Nothing like that has ever happened in my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds heartless or bad that she doesn't remember them.
But they
But
are dealing with
if you're
so
helping
many
so many
people.
people,
And
you
you're not
don't-
really clocking the faces as much unless you're like with that patient for a really long time, I feel like. I can't speak from personal experience, but I would assume because you're doing a service. It's like when it's not quite the same, but like being a server at a restaurant, like, yeah, you obviously are trying to build a connection with them in that moment, but because there's so many customers, like you build a connection and then they leave and you may or may not see them ever again. So your kind of faces are kind of filtering in and out throughout the day, I feel like. Obviously, there's moments where you probably build stronger connections with patients than others, I'm assuming. But yeah, 100%.
But that kind of speaks to the idea that just because a moment necessarily doesn't stick strong to you does not mean it wasn't very impactful for someone else.
Right. 100%.
Obviously, this was very impactful for them because they're going through hip
they'll probably remember
replacement
this for the rest of their lives now, you know, with this thing that just happened at the grocery store with this woman stepping up to pay for all their groceries like that. That's such a
That's a
kind
big grocery
thing.
bill.
Wow. And yeah, just very unexpected, but very, very cool. And just an example of showing your gratitude in different ways. I mean, like, obviously this woman had the means or wanted to do this for that person, which is super awesome. But, I mean, who knows if she knew that how far along she was in her pregnancy and like knew that how much that extra meant to them, that they were like stocking up for that. That's super exciting. So yeah, I just thought that was such a cool way of giving back to, especially like nurses and people in the medical field in general. Like, it's a hard job. I have friends in that field and it's very mentally and emotionally taxing for sure. And so being able to show your gratitude to them for that, you know, I think it's a really cool thing.
Now that's a situation where responding with no thank you back makes sense because she paid for their groceries then, you know, like there is actually an exchange there of they both have reasons to be thankful for each other in that situation.
Very, very cool. So yeah, I love that story. All right, now on to our news article. Our news article for today comes from HuffPost and it is titled "Student Stuns Mom and Toddler with Surprise Birthday Gift in Target."
Okay.
So this story is about a mother and her 3 kids that were shopping in a Target when her 2-year-old found a doll on the shelf and was super in love with it and was like, I want this doll. And her mom's like, we're not here to get toys. And the kid's like, but I love this doll. And eventually...
It happens.
Yes. And eventually, this young man came up and asked her, which one is it that you're looking at that you love? To quote the little toddler, it says, I really love this one, and pointing to a toy. And all of a sudden, the young man picked up the doll and just walked out with it. And the mom was like, okay, that was really weird. All right.
I'm assuming what the next thing's going to happen is, but imagine if that was the end of the story.
Yes.
It's like, so which toys do you really want? Which toy do you want? That one?
Grabs it and leaves.
Mine, and then walks out with it, or doesn't say anything, just never sees him again.
Like,
I mean,
that
wouldn't make it a very positive story, but it makes it a funny one.
So they were standing in the aisle, and then all of a sudden, the guy came back with a bag, the doll, and a receipt, and said, "Happy birthday!" Because apparently the little girl's birthday, he overheard them, and he said, "Enjoy your dolly," and gave her the doll. It left the mom speechless. She was just like, oh my gosh. She took a photo. She asked to take a photo with him to be able to like put out there that he had done this for her daughter because she thought that was super cool. And then her post actually went viral and she hadn't gotten the guy's name. She forgot to ask, but someone identified him as a freshman football player at Purdue University. And the Purdue athletics team saw the post and actually responded to it on their Facebook page. And to quote them, it said, "We couldn't be more proud of the type of young men and women in our athletics department." And then the NCAA also honored him and said, "It's always refreshing to see random acts of kindness." So yeah, it was like apparently like a huge thing that went viral. And yeah, when the mother was interviewed, she said, "Tario is a good role model for kids these days. I hope our children remember this for years to come and remember what it means to truly pay it forward." Yeah.
I mean, it's a small gesture, but it's super nice.
Well, yeah,
and, like,
he never had to do that, you know? Like, and he probably made that little kid's day for sure if she was like enamored with this doll. And also probably saved the mom from having to like leave with the kid in tears because sometimes kids get really set on that one thing and they're like, I have to have that. I have to have it. And it's hard to pull them away
Yeah.
from it sometimes. And it was her birthday, apparently. So there's also
oh,
that.
that's true.
So made her birthday probably a little extra special that she got the doll she was looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that was super sweet. And he did it, obviously, it doesn't sound like he did it for any clout or anything, but then got it anyways because the mom felt the need to like put out a post out there to the world being like, this guy just reminded me that good people are out there and stuff and did this for my little daughter. And then all of a sudden, all the athletics team and stuff were like, wow, yeah, see, our guy on our athletics team is a shining example of people on our team and stuff. So like he got recognition and that got to see that gratitude in another way as well. Besides also in person, because it sounds like, you know, she expressed that to him in person too.
Yeah, I'm not surprised the team and the NCAA jumped on, you know, any opportunity to highlight one of their own. But, you know, for him, he didn't really seek the glory himself. You know, he probably didn't think much of it.
Yeah, he just thought like, oh, made me feel happy to see that little girl happy that I did that for her.
Mm-hmm. Because again, like what you consider to be a small gesture that's kind of like, okay, whatever, super easy, like could mean the world to somebody else.
Exactly. So just a super, super sweet story. And I thought a fun way to end off our episode. So. And with that, we will end today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week's episode, tune in next Wednesday. We're going to be talking about overcoming differences. We got some very interesting stories and kind of a fun segment that I'm excited to try out. If you have positive stories that you would like to share or hopeful news articles or just topics that you want us to talk about, feel free to send them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com, or you can share them to our Reddit thread, Uplift Positive Stories, or join our Facebook group. So lots of options. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please feel free to like and subscribe. And we've released new videos every Wednesday as well. So
Gilmy appreciates your liking and subscribing of our channel because you get to see him. Sorry, audio people, but just imagine a small Shih Tzu sitting in my lap right now.
Oh my gosh.
Completely limp. But this is what you get when you watch a video. You get a dog sometimes.
Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll tune in next week. Have a great week.
And stay positive.